child, I was always allowed to dress myself in the morning. And as you can see, it went horribly from the start. Nowadays, I like to think I'm a better stylist, but I still have my issues. I'm the kind of person who worries a lot about what I wear. Not that I only wear name brand clothes, just that I can't help considering what others will think of me. People do judge a book by its cover, and I'd like that cover to at least somewhat reflect what the actual contents of my personality are. Clearly, as a 7-year-old, this is what I thought that meant. The problem is, I don't have one style that really reflects my whole personality, so my closet is all over the place with different looks. A lot of these clothes are very conventionally feminine. I love my long, flowing dresses and floral patterned blouses. But I can't wear most of this on a daily basis because, unfortunately, long, flowing skirts are a hazard when you're working with gears and chains in robotics. And I don't want to spill bleach on my favorite blouse in a chem lab. Much to my dismay, my fashion sense and love of STEM do not mesh neatly with one another. STEM has been a passion of mine for as long as I can remember. By a show of hands, how many of you have seen the show Mythbusters? All right, you all pass. That was my favorite show growing up, and I would watch it basically every day. And Carrie Byron, in the center there, was my absolute favorite. She's pretty, with gorgeous red hair, killer intellect, and most importantly, conducted cool experiments involving explosions. In retrospect, I probably attached to her because she was frequently the only female host. But regardless, she was my idol, and I wanted to be just like her. So, I played with puzzles on understanding basic mechanics. I attended Coder Dojo at Hartnell College to learn programming. I volunteered for a company that made little programmable robots for kids when I was still a kid myself. That's what I was holding in that first photo. I did math competitions for fun. Like, I would actually skip PE to sit in the corner of a room and do more math. Weird, right? Now, I bet you're starting to get an idea of what I was like, that I was always holed up inside, tinkering on some scientific kit, that I was fluent in Java by age 10, a prodigy, that as soon as I fell in love with STEM, I concerned myself with nothing else from that day forth. That's how a lot of media portrays people in STEM, and that's how I imagined someone in STEM for the longest time. In particular, my idea was almost exclusively, overwhelmingly male. This isn't necessarily wrong, given gender statistics. As we can see from this infographic from the STEM Women organization, there are only 35 women for every 100 STEM positions. That's almost twice as many men. This disparity starts early. Research shows that by second grade, kids are forming negative associations between girls and math. That means there are 8-year-old kids out there who are already making these associations. Middle school is one of the biggest leaks in the STEM pipeline, where girls lose the most interest. I was very close to being one of those girls who lost interest in, well, everything once middle school hit. It was an incredibly difficult time for me, as it was a time of great discovery, or in other words, great confusion. I was discovering things about the world, and more distressingly, about myself. For example, I discovered that I wanted to pursue a career in STEM among the slew of interests I held, but I was also discovering that I was queer, that I was incredibly affected by my ADHD, that I suffered from chronic depression and generalized anxiety, all with a dollop of insomnia on top. Keep in mind, this was a mountain of internal searching, diagnosis, and discovery I ran into headlong in the midst of a global pandemic. In middle school was when we had our first block on the Renaissance, and that was when I really learned about Leonardo da Vinci beyond just the name. A man also incredibly all over the place. Inventor, engineer, artist, genius, massive procrastinator who frequently abandoned projects right before finishing them. Also, fun fact, a gay man. Da Vinci, Renaissance, Renaissance man, the sensational intellect with a strong personality. I wanted to be that. And I was inspired that the quirks of this great historical figure, quirks I saw in myself, never hindered his career. But there's one grand difference between Da Vinci and me. He was a man, and I am very much not. And because of this simple difference, all of the traits Da Vinci flourished for transformed curiously into things the world said were wrong with me. Some things were told to me outright, that I needed to focus more or tone it down a little. But other things no one had to tell me because I taught myself through observation, through what I saw in the world, on TV, or what I read in books. From the few female role models I saw and connected with, I learned that if I wanted to make it, to prove myself to the world of STEM, I had to throw everything else out, including my femininity and my personality. Again, no one had to tell me this because I absorbed the knowledge simply by existing in the world. I don't doubt that many, many other girls have come to the same conclusion based off the way media portrays the STEM field and women in STEM. That you need to work twice as hard to make up for being a girl, or that you need to apologize for this difference you were born with. The world loves to tell people, everyone, that there are aspects of your identity that despite being inherent and unchangeable, you will spend your whole life apologizing for. Because of how supportive my family and teachers were growing up, it wasn't until I was older, coming out of the pandemic, that I began to really notice the daily moments of misogyny in the world around me. I was crushed. I was shocked. I was ashamed. And then I was shocked that I felt ashamed. I wasn't the one in the wrong. Other people were making assumptions about me, that I needed an explanation for something I already knew, or that I wouldn't care about the things they encouraged my male classmates to do. Once I noticed the blatant, I became more in tune with the subtle. The small STEM communities I did have access to were largely male, and in that way, largely unaccepting of anyone else. It was an unspoken rule, but I felt it in the friend groups and conversations, like somehow my inability to make small talk about sports or cars made me unfit to be in STEM. Regardless, I persisted. And as I processed these events and processed my reactions to them, I came to a realization. There will always be people who exclude against or judge us for aspects of our identity that we can't change, and they are the ones in the wrong. But it was me, myself, my own brain that was responsible for the way I internalized their reactions. More than anyone else, I was the one pushing myself to fit into the small box of what I thought was correct. Okay, I say I came to this realization, but it was really with the help of my therapist. And in response, she armed me with two of the most important, and in my opinion, most difficult to master skills. First, dialectical thinking, and second, radical acceptance. Dialectical thinking is the ability to acknowledge all sides of a scenario and allow contradicting ideas, facts, or realities to exist without one invalidating another and without trying to find some blurry middle ground. Radical acceptance is the ability to come to terms with the extremes of a situation by acknowledging what you do or do not have control over. These two mindfulness techniques go hand in hand. Dialectical thinking says you can have a million different feelings in response to something all at once, and radical acceptance says that all of them are okay. Now, why was my therapist bringing this up when I was talking about internalized misogyny? Because this is how I would combat it, by saying yes. Yes, I like math, engineering, and physics, and I have other girly interests. Yes, I'm queer, and I still like to present myself in ways that are typically feminine. Yes, I value my liveliness and love of learning as core aspects of my identity, even when I'm too depressed to engage with them. I can give myself permission to be a million different things and acknowledge that I am still one single, beautiful, unique person. The world will, at one point or another, try to tell everyone that there is something about themselves that they should apologize for, that should make them feel ashamed, that there are aspects of your identity that don't fit together, and it's your responsibility to make yourself more palatable. When it's just one thing, it feels easy to turn around into something excusable within the context of a larger personality. But when it feels like everything you've built yourself on defies what is expected of you, any sense of personal security is shaky at best. It is a terrifyingly thin line between apologizing for being a girl, for being gay, for being this ethnicity or having that disability, and then having to apologize just for being alive. Why are some of us told we are too much? Is it fair to limit someone to one side of a whole personality? Did anyone tell Leonardo da Vinci he needed to tone it down a little? If they did, I'm sure they feel silly now, seeing how we revere him in all his variety. The boxes we put ourselves in are made of cardboard, not set in stone. They can be and should be broken down. It is difficult to deconstruct the shame we direct onto ourselves, difficult to master radical acceptance of the radically different people within one person. But the first step to being able to recognize the paradoxical beauty in the world and in others is to be able to celebrate it within ourselves. And so, tonight, I invite you to think about two aspects of your identity that don't seem to fit together, or that might contradict each other a bit. Hold them next to each other and see the ways they interact. Consider how the contrast between these two aspects, interests, or labels enhance one another. Now, take this paradox you hold within yourself and embrace it. Thank you.